Good day and welcome to British Mirror. Let me start with a question that sounds like satire but is now dangerously close to reality. What happens when a British Prime Minister looks at a social media platform, frowns deeply, mutters the words "think of the children" and casually floats the idea of banning one of the most influential digital town squares on Earth? No, this is not the plot of a dystopian novel or an abandoned episode of Black Mirror. This is Britain, right now. And yes, the platform in question is Elon Musk's X. Buckle up, because what starts as a debate about artificial intelligence images quickly spirals into free speech, trade wars, American sanctions, and Sir Keir Starmer doing what his critics say he does best, announcing something boldly, then quietly walking backwards. Quick favor before we dive into the chaos. If you enjoy sharp analysis with a bit of bite, hit that subscribe button and tap the notifications bell. Most viewers still have not subscribed. It is free, it takes a second, and it keeps British Mirror alive and kicking. Thank you if you have done that. Now back to the show. So let us lay out the spark that lit this particular bonfire. Downing Street has been making ominous noises about cracking down on X after concerns emerged around Elon Musk's artificial intelligence chatbot, Grok. Specifically, Grok was accused of generating sexualized images using artificial intelligence. Cue the press statements, the moral outrage, and the unmistakable scent of a political opportunity drifting through Westminster. Enter Toby Young, chief of the Free Speech Union, who looked at this entire performance and called it exactly what he thinks it is, wildly over the top. Speaking to Matt Goodwin, Lord Young did not mince his words. He predicted that Sir Keir Starmer would announce a ban, begin the process, then execute a U-turn with the elegance of a supermarket trolley with one wonky wheel. In other words, a lot of noise, very little follow-through. And let us pause here, because this criticism hits a nerve. Starmer's critics have long accused him of political theatre without conviction. Strong statements, stern expressions, and then retreat once the consequences come into focus. According to Lord Young, this is less about child protection and more about performative toughness against a convenient villain. Now, here's where the argument becomes more interesting. The justification for this proposed crackdown rests on the claim that Grok can generate sexualized images. Lord Young's response was refreshingly blunt. Every artificial intelligence system can do that, every single one. From image generators to chatbots, the capacity exists across the board. Grok is not unique, it is not special. It is simply the one owned by a man this government finds deeply irritating. And that irritation matters, because X is not just another platform in the eyes of many Labour figures. It is seen as hostile territory, a place where critics of the government thrive, a digital pub where dissent is not just allowed, but actively encouraged. To some on the Labour benches, that makes it less a social network and more an ideological problem. Lord Young went further, pointing out that X has already taken steps to limit Grok's behavior. Safeguards have been introduced to prevent the creation of sexualized images of children or images of women without consent. That's an important detail because it undermines the idea that this platform is recklessly refusing to engage with responsibility. Instead, it suggests a company responding, adjusting, and evolving exactly as regulators usually claim they want. So why the nuclear option talk? Why hint at a ban? According to critics, because Elon Musk makes an excellent bogeyman. He's rich, outspoken, American, and deeply uninterested in progressive orthodoxy. Pointing at him guarantees applause from certain quarters. It's political catnip. You get to look tough, moral, and decisive, all while picking a fight with someone your base already dislikes. But politics doesn't exist in a vacuum, and this is where the story takes a sharp turn from culture war to economic reality.
Britain, under Sir Keir Starmer, has been loudly advertising a $56 billion technology trade deal with the United States. This deal has been trumpeted as a cornerstone of growth, innovation, and post-Brexit relevance. And here's the problem: that deal is now wobbling. Why? Because Ofcom has been rattling its regulatory saber as American technology companies, particularly around artificial intelligence. The regulator appears to believe that United States-based artificial intelligence systems should comply fully with the entire suite of British censorship and content laws. That expectation, to put it politely, is not being warmly received in Washington. Lord Young made the point starkly. The more Starmer insists that Ofcom pursues this aggressive regulatory posture, the less likely that trade deal becomes. American technology companies are not in the habit of bending the knee to foreign regulators without a fight. And the United States government, regardless of party, tends to react badly to what it perceives as ideological censorship. Now imagine explaining this to voters. On one hand, the government says it wants growth, investment, and cutting-edge technology partnerships. On the other, it flirts with banning one of the world's largest social media platforms, owned by one of the most influential figures in global technology. That's not joined-up thinking, that's policy Jenga. And then came the transatlantic thunderclap. Republican Congresswoman and Trump ally Anna Paulina Luna issued a warning that sounded less like diplomacy and more like a trailer for a sequel nobody asked for. If Britain bans X, she would push legislation to sanction not just Sir Keir Starmer personally, but Britain as a whole. Yes, you heard that correctly, sanctions. Miss Luna pointed to precedent. In 2024, the US imposed sanctions on a Brazilian judge who temporarily blocked X. Those measures included tariffs, visa revocations, and other consequences tied explicitly to free speech concerns. In other words, this is not theoretical, it has already happened elsewhere. Her message to Britain was unambiguous: reconsider this course of action or face consequences. Now, take a step back and appreciate the sheer absurdity of this moment. Britain, once famed for exporting liberal democratic values, is now being warned by American politicians that it risks sanctions for restricting free speech. The irony is so thick you could spread it on toast. Miss Luna went even further, framing the issue not as technical compliance, but as a political war against Elon Musk and free speech itself. That's a devastating line, because it reframes the entire debate. This is no longer about protecting children from artificial intelligence misuse. It becomes about whether the British state is comfortable suppressing platforms that host uncomfortable opinions. And this is where Sir Keir Starmer finds himself trapped between instincts. On one side, the loyally cautious internationalist who wants strong relations with the United States and a thriving technology sector. On the other, the political leader under pressure from activists, regulators, and party figures who view free speech platforms with suspicion. The danger here is escalation. Ban X or even seriously attempt it, and Britain risks retaliation. Not just rhetorical outrage, but economic consequences, tariffs, trade delays, diplomatic frost. At a time when growth is already fragile, that's a gamble bordering on reckless. And let us not forget the U-turn factor. Starmer's critics believe this ends the same way many of his toughest-sounding positions do: announcement, headline, backlash, quiet retreat. If that happens, the damage may already have been done, the signal sent, the trust shaken. This entire saga exposes a central tension in modern British politics: the desire to regulate speech in the name of safety versus the reality of living in a globally connected digital economy. You can't pull one thread without tugging the entire web. So, where does this leave us? With a Prime Minister facing pressure from regulators at home, allies abroad, and critics who see this as an attack on free expression dressed up as concern. with a government that wants American investment while antagonizing American tech, and with a public watching another culture war skirmish play out while the cost of living quietly hums in the background. If Sir Keir Starmer truly wants to protect children, the focus should be on enforceable, proportionate rules applied consistently across platforms, not grandstanding threats aimed at a single company because it happens to host inconvenient voices. Because once you start banning platforms, you don't just silence the people you dislike, you set a precedent, and precedents have a habit of outliving the politicians who create them. Thank you for watching British Mirror. Your time and attention are genuinely appreciated. Until next time, good day.